right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. This is our 2021 kickoff meeting. I know that says March 10th, 2020. It is supposed to be 2021. Let's not relive 2020 again if we can. So this is the Nova TUG, Northern Virginia Tableau User Group. You can find us on LinkedIn at Nova Tableau User Group. That just kind of helps you keep in touch, informed of all the comings and goings of what we're doing. So I just want to real quickly introduce you to the leaders of the user group that we have here. We have Sebastian, who is on the call all the way from Germany tonight. Brian, Patrick, and myself, I'm Jeff. And us for delivering you content. We try to do a meeting every 2 months or so. So certainly plenty of opportunities, plenty of content. Please feel free to reach out to any of us if you ever want to present, if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing here with the user group, really anything. All right, so without further ado, today's agenda. So we'll spend some time, just a welcome, some updates. Like I said, it's the first meeting of 2021. I think it's been a while. Last time we met was mid-December, so it's been a couple months. Some things have been happening, so we'll be able to give you a couple updates. And then we have a great lineup for you with Britt Stouffer, who's going to be talking about finding fraud within Tableau. And then Richard Durval, who's going to be talking about different Tableau formatting, making it fun and functional. So a lot of content here, great stuff to kind of learn, go with at any time. If you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to just unmute yourself and let us know, and we'll definitely get those answered for you. Keeping in mind as well, this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch this again on your own time. All right, so what's going on in the world of Nova TUG? So wanted to let you guys know the next Nova TUG is tentatively scheduled for May 26th. It's going to be another virtual event. No speakers have been announced yet or anything like that, but we'll be working hard in the background to make sure it's as good, if not better, meeting than we've ever had before. Next thing is our friends over at Lollipop are hiring. So we've had Chantilly speaking before, and they are hiring. They have 2 roles open right now. There's a solutions lead for data visualization and a senior solutions lead for data engineering. So you can go to lovelytics.com if you're interested and view those. Also wanted to announce something that was just announced through Twitter today. So we have 2 Tableau All-Stars, and Michelle Freeman and Zach Geis. They are starting a series of Tableau office hours. Those are open to anyone in the entire world. Just go to this link here and you can sign up for an event. And they're just there to answer any Tableau related questions you have. They're both Tableau featured, Tableau public featured authors. Like I said, just kind of Tableau rock stars, and definitely just a great event to open it up to the community, get some of their feedback on anything that you're doing, and of course, connect with some kind of pillars of the Tableau community and some other users out there as well. And then happy International Women's Day. On Monday, we celebrated International Women's Day, so definitely wanted to include that as well. So I'm going to pause here. If there's anybody out there who is looking for opportunities, if there's anyone out there hiring for anybody Tableau or data related, or just has anything they want to bring up to the group, we'd love to hear it. That's okay. As I said, you can always reach to myself or any of the user group leaders if you ever are looking for opportunities, needs, anything like that, we'd be happy to spotlight you. Speaking of which, we have Pooja on the call. This is someone who had reached out to us and you were happy to have here with us, and we just wanted to do a community spotlight on her. She is looking for internships or opportunities. Here's a little bit more about her on this slide. And Pooja, if you want to kind of take yourself off mute and give yourself a little bit of an introduction to the group here.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I would like to thank Brian, Sebastian, Jeff, and Patrick for this wonderful opportunity. My name is Pooja, and I am currently looking for either internship or full-time opportunities in data science, data analytics, data engineering, and Tableau development. I've completed my master's in data analytics engineering from George Mason University. My core skills are Python, R, SQL, SSIS, Tableau, and Power BI. I have around 5 years of experience using Tableau, developing, maintaining, and managing advanced reporting, analytics, dashboards, and other BI tools. I would really appreciate if you could let me know of any openings or can point me to someone looking to hire Tableau developers or someone with a data science background. My email address is pooja.amf05@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Jeff.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, as mentioned, Pooja's email is right here. If you have any openings or know anyone in the community or know anyone in your network that does, please feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to, and hopefully we can kind of make a connection here. All right, so I think we were going to have Rip speak, and I don't know if he actually was able to make the call tonight. Rip, are you there?
I don't see him on the list, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, something must have came up for Rip. That's perfectly fine. So we'll get in touch with him and hopefully he can present on this topic another time. I think it was going to be a great topic. So we'll get in touch with Rip and make sure he's able to present at a later date. So in the meantime, luckily we do have Richard here. We can jump over to Richard. So he's going to be talking about fun and functional formatting. And luckily for us, he can talk about this topic for hours. So we can certainly fill plenty of time here. And Richard, if there's time at the end, you know, I have plenty of things I can discuss as well. So I will kind of give it over to you and you can just kind of go for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I want to make sure everyone can hear me. Can you hear me okay, Jeff?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Next, I'm going to share my screen. I might end up turning off my camera just due to some bandwidth issues, but we'll see how long I can get away with it. Can you see my screen as well, Jeff? Perfect, perfect. So I wanted to welcome everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting around design, formatting, and doing all of that with functionality in mind, specifically your end user, right? A lot of times we're really good at creating visualizations. We're really good at creating different types of analysis, but we're not always good at making these things intuitive for our end users, for the people who are going to be consuming these visualizations. And, you know, at times formatting, especially doing things that are, you know, more customized in Tableau can be tricky. So I have actually presented at Tableau conference a number of times. I want to say 3 or 4 times around formatting specifically. Last year, I talked a little bit, I talked more about, or the year before last, pre-pandemic, I talked about data architecture and blending versus cross-database joins, but I still retained that expertise around formatting. As part of my introduction, I was like sharing this picture of me at Tableau conference. It's a picture of me next to me. So I also do Tableau Doctor when I'm not presenting. And Tableau Doctor is when, you know, you get to meet with customers. Hopefully some of y'all in the room have been to Tableau conference. and really work together to solve their problems in Tableau, right? Maybe the real life, real world problems, maybe I can't help there, but the Tableau problems I can help. So combining these two experiences of presenting at Tableau conference around formatting and my experience as a solution engineer and being a Tableau doctor, I feel like today could be a great session where we kind of open it up. And I talk about formatting, the science behind visual analysis. And, folks can feel free to ask me questions or to ask me to dive deeper, especially now that we have a little bit more time. So I just want to let you all know, feel free to ask me questions throughout. I'm going to be moving a little fast sometimes. Luckily, this is recorded, but I want y'all to know that I'm going to share the workbook that I will be using today with everyone, as well as some links to Tableau Public and some additional resources. And I'll make sure to send that over to Jeff and crew after today's meeting. But in addition to being a Tableau doctor and a speaker, in my day job, I manage a team of solution engineers. So I'm a senior manager and I manage all of the solution engineers working with US and Canada that do work with the SMB segment. Previous to this role, I led a team of international solution engineers working specifically with USCA, more of the East Coast, but predominantly mostly in Latin America. So I do speak Spanish and Portuguese as well, but I'll make sure to do today's presentation in English. So before we get started with formatting, I like talking a little bit more about what we're going to cover. And a lot of what we're going to cover are going to have to do with these pre-attentive attributes. So the pre-attentive visual attributes is what you typically see in the marks card in Tableau, right? So think of things like size, like length and width, or orientation. That could be your labels, if something, or even your labels on your axes on your title, if something's vertical or horizontal. Shapes, enclosures, 2D positioning, grouping, colors, and color intensity. And we're going to be using all of these pre-attentive visual attributes to design for the end user in mind. A lot of these pre-attentive attributes just come naturally to us as humans. So think about a hunter, right? Looking out into a grassy field. They will be able to see and differentiate the movement of an animal, or they'll be able to see a flash of color. These are things that humans have evolved. We are very visual creatures. So we need to be able to leverage all of these pre-attentive attributes within Tableau and within our design best practices to make things easier to understand. And the thing that we're making easier to understand is analytics. And analytics is defined as the scientific process of transforming data into insight for making better decisions. But what is visual analytics? And visual analytics is the representation and presentation of data that exploits our visual perception abilities in order to amplify cognition. And why should we prefer visual analysis? Like I said, it's something that comes naturally. So let's look at this table. And like I said, I'm hoping for some interactivity today. Within this table, there is a number of number nines. So I'd like y'all to take a couple of seconds here and tell me, how many number nines are there? And let me know if there's any guesses that pop up in the chat, Jeff.
Will do.
I'm gonna wait a little bit longer. Well, maybe somebody has the correct answer, maybe not. But now tell me how many number nines there are. It's much easier, especially once this color is differentiated. And apologies for it being in red. Definitely need to make this more inclusive for everyone. So I'll make sure to note this to make sure to put this in blue or orange, just to make it easier to see. Another example here is comparing 4 teams. And what we're looking at is time and role and the amount of sales in thousands of dollars or millions, however you want to you want to look at it. And what we're trying to find out here is if there's some sort of correlation between experience, right, their tenure, and their success in sales. So if we look, we see we have team 1, team 2, 3, and 4. And we can see the number of years in the role and their total amount of sales. Obviously, the more sales they have, the more successful they are in this role. Even if we break this out and start looking at this in almost like an ANOVA table, we can start seeing that there are certain correlations here. So if we look at the t-value, the p-value, the variance, the correlation between time and revenue, we can see that this sort of makes sense. Maybe there is some sort of correlation. But when we plot that data in a visual way, we can see that yes, there is a correlation, or there is a linear regression. Yes, they share, similar medians, similar values, but the visual story that this tells is that there really isn't much of a correlation in all the teams between experience and the number of sales. So look at team 4 down in the bottom right-hand corner. Or check out team 3. There's definitely an outlier there. And these are things that we would not have been able to see or realize as easily when we're looking at that table. But not all of those attributes are equal. And we're going to talk a lot today about position, color, size, and shapes. And we're going to talk about that in the context of formatting too. I love getting to the product, and I promise y'all there's going to be a lot of me into the product today. But some rules to keep in mind when you're building things, and even when I'm building things live, and y'all can correct me if I make some of these mistakes. But when we're thinking about color, and we'll get to position, but when we're thinking about color, remember, humans are going to be able to differentiate about 8 colors. And when I say differentiate, I mean, remember that Alabama is blue, Arkansas is orange, Colorado is green, etc. If we look at the visualization on the right, I mix the visualization on the right. This one's the one that's actually supposed to be labeled, "This is not helpful." So apologies there. But this is the one that is actually not very helpful. It looks like a lot of confetti there. It's going to be very hard for folks to remember that Colorado is a deep color green and Connecticut is a lighter color green. The one on the left is the helpful one. So again, sorry for the confusion, because we're limiting the number of colors. So instead of having colors, for example, on state, we're looking at colors in the number in the type of container. So that's going to be much easier for somebody to look at that scatter plot and know what they're looking at versus looking at the scatter plot and then having to constantly go back and look at the legend. But even the visualization on the right, where we're looking at profit and sales and try to see what state has the highest sales, might be a little difficult in a scatter plot. It's something that could be even easier, perhaps on the map. So when I show this map and ask the question, which state has the worst profit? What's the first answer that pops up in y'all's head? What's the first state that you see? And just assuming that red is negative and blues, or excuse me, deep orange is negative and the blues are going to be positive. You're going to look at this and you're going to think, well, Texas has the worst profit. And that's because of the color. But remember, I'm going to go back a couple of slides here. Remember, color is above size. But still, in this map, we're looking at states that have the worst profit. There are a lot of states in the East Coast that are very small. When we look at this using shapes, hex bins specifically for a map of the United States versus an actual map, you can see that the answer is not Texas. It's going to be Rhode Island, the smallest state, which was not as easy to see on that map. So even when you're building a visualization like a map, you might want to consider, can I actually tell which state has the worst profit? In a scatter plot, that might not be as easy to see, but you could see an outlier. In a map, you get the great view, but states like Rhode Island are missing. So that's maybe when you want to start thinking about adding some shapes and further either differentiating those values, or in this case, making all the sizes equal so the colors can further stand out to the end user to help that end user differentiate which state has the worst profit without really considering size. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Comments?
Yes, Matt K had a comment here. What about size in this case? And I think you're referring to the hex bin.
Yeah,
Matt?
exactly. So in this case, I could have put, for example, sales on size, so I could see the different hex bins, be larger on sales while having color be the profitability. So I could see, okay, this state has a large amount of sales, but they have negative profits. But I feel like to answer the question of what state has the worst profit, we need to actually eliminate size, right? The map of the continental US, that's taking size into consideration. Obviously, Texas is going to be bigger than Rhode Island, and our eyes are drawn to Texas first. But when we make all the shapes equal in size, right? Eliminating the size difference and then just have colors showcasing the differentiation between profitability, that's when it makes more sense. That's when we can actually see that Rhode Island has worse profits than Texas. That makes sense? Hope I was able to answer that.
Cool. We have one more question as well, just showing the triangle, the priorities one more time. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're going to cover position, right? Position is something that it is extremely important, but I wanted to talk about the size, color, size, and shape first before we get to the position, because that's going to be a lot of what we talk about today, is how you're going to order dashboards, how people typically, at least in the Western world, are looking at things and reading things and engaging with different formats of media, right? Or visualizations. Are there any other questions? Well, Jeff, feel free to interrupt me, and I'll make sure to take some pauses throughout as well. Another thing to remember is time. Time always needs to be linear. It's good to represent time, even sometimes in bar graphs. So let's think of a waterfall chart, for example. You're using bar graphs, but you're still using that linear axis. So when I say linear, it doesn't necessarily have to be a timeline, right? A continuous line, but it does need to have some sort of progression. There are a couple of exceptions, and that's when you're looking at things in an aggregate way. So imagine if you're looking at days of the week, regardless of what month it is or what day it is of the year, and then day of the month. So values between 1 and 30, and then Sunday through Saturday. All right, that's not something that's going to be as linear because you can create a heat map and start seeing like more aggregate values. But when you're trying to show like the passage of time, when you're creating a forecast, for example, or a historical view of something, that's when you should have some sort of linear progression with the way you're looking for at time. And when you're building these different visualizations, so even here, right, we do have different buckets of years from 2007 to 2010. It still has that linear progression, but it does restart for each different player in this example. But think about the orientation of how you're putting the labels or the different headers. It obviously makes more sense in this case, and this is when we start talking about position, right? To have things horizontal rather than vertically, right? It makes it much easier to look position 1B, player, and then the year, rather than looking at each player and then have the different years as headers in the bar graph on the right. So making sure that you're orienting things for readability is extremely important, even when building things like a bar chart or a line graph. Now, when you're reading dashboards, make sure things have a logical flow, right? So in the Western world, right, folks read from left to right, up to down. And that's the same thing for a dashboard. Dashboard should be positioned the most important thing to the top left or at the top, and then things of, progressively less value as you go through the dashboard. And I'm going to have examples. But this, you can see in the image that there's parts of the image that are transparent, or I guess like translucent here, and then parts that are darker. The translucent parts, that's where people are focusing on the most. So imagine that there's an eye tracking sensor on a visualization. And you'll see that people are progressing from left to right. So they're looking at that bar graph in the top left first. They're looking at the KPIs along the top first. And they're spending less time progressively as they go through the dashboard. This can, of course, change depending on your audience. But if you think about the audience that we're typically engaging with, or your audience, make sure that you're designing for readability, because it's extremely important that you're putting the most important things on top and then go from left to right in importance. Dashboards should also pass what we like to call the 5-second test. So you should be able to look at a dashboard and in less than 5 seconds, know what that dashboard is supposed to do, know what question it's supposed to answer. This one, for example, obviously it's about finding Bigfoot. Where is Bigfoot in this map, right? And we can see where there's a lot of sightings of Bigfoot. And again, we're using a lot of different formatting here. We have our map. We have a map layer showing demographics. We're using size. We're using color. There's one green dot showing us a specific area that we're looking at. We have the timeline as well, different classes, and folks are also using annotations here to display additional information that might not be on the data, on the visualization. We'll get to annotations as well when we hop into the product. And this is when I want to start talking about formatting. Because a lot of the things that you saw here, yeah, they have to do with the marks card, they have to do with mapping or building bar charts. But at the end of the day, we're all good at building those visualizations. And it's going that extra step. It's going into that formatting to format to help impact those conclusions that people are supposed to make. Like in these examples, right, we have two different visualizations basically showing very similar information in two completely different ways. Both of them, I feel like, are extremely understandable. Are there any thoughts about which one may have, more interactivity? Personally, what I've seen happen is a visualization like the visualization on the left, something that's formatted more, something that has some KPIs at the bottom, that has an interactive title, that has some descriptions, is going to get a lot more usage than the visualization on the right that isn't formatted, that's using some basic colors. Ride sharing and taxi, to me, it makes more sense that taxi is going to be yellow and ride sharing is going to be a different color. And that's going to make a lot of sense for your end users. And just switching colors using custom palettes, those seem like small changes. That's going to make the biggest differences when actually getting people to engage with your dashboards. Much like the triangle that I showed you all earlier, formatting also has a progression. But the progression here is how you're formatting. What I like to say is that you go from the least granular to the most granular. So in Tableau, you can actually format the entire workbook in a few clicks. You can format a dashboard very easily as well, and that's just one dashboard specifically. Or you can format down to a sheet. And in the sheet level, you can format very specific areas of that sheet. But it's cascading. So changes that you make at the sheet level, if you go back and then modify something at the workbook level, those sheet changes that you made at the most granular level are going to override any of those workbook changes. So if you design with a vision in mind and you start making the biggest changes at the workbook level, for example, removing all lines and all grid lines and all zero lines from your entire workbook in one click, and then going to your dashboards and formatting all of the titles, the backgrounds, the different colors and options that you have in the dashboard formatting, and then going through and formatting your sheets is best practices. So it's working from, like I said, the high level to the most granular. And if you keep that in mind, it's going to save you a lot of time when you're formatting, because the worst thing is going through sheet by sheet and having to do small tweaks to individual sheets to get that aesthetic look that you're going for. And there's another part to Sheets, but I'm going to save that for a little bit later in my presentation. Another thing to consider is titles and tooltips. I feel like oftentimes these are things that are forgotten when it comes to formatting. Titles, they need to be dynamic. It needs to have a purpose. And by dynamic, I mean, I want to be able to click on a state and I want the title of my dashboard to say dashboard for Texas, for example, right? So making titles dynamic are really going to help end users know what they're looking at. Titles should also be informative. They should help guide the end users. Having instructions like, click on the bar chart to drill down on the map in the title is also going to help that end user get more value and be guided throughout their analysis. And tooltips. Tooltips need to be necessary. Did y'all know that you can turn off tooltips? Why would you need a tooltip, for example, in a crosstab? Why would you need a tooltip in a pie chart or a donut chart? So tooltips, make sure they're actually necessary. And if they are necessary, make sure they're adding value. There's a lot of formatting that you can do within tooltips, even putting visualizations within tooltips. So use tooltips to make your visualizations more impactful and not to detract from the visualizations. I hate seeing hovering over a mark on my visualization and a massive tooltip appearing with everything that I put on the details shelf, obscuring the view for my end user. In that case, I might as well eliminate that tooltip because it's really not needed and it's actually detracting from my work. Colors and shapes. We talked about colors, but shapes is something that you can also start leveraging in Tableau. And I'm going to show you all how. There's a couple of different ways. You can use custom shapes, obviously, right? So including like PNGs or JPGs within visualization to represent a mark. But also, have y'all considered using a PNG within a dashboard, just an image? And I'll show you how I'm using that to make something really interactive. Colors should also be used wisely. Try to match styles, match your corporate aesthetic. Like I said, have that overall kind of view for your whole workbook or your whole dashboard in mind before you start. Start making those changes at the very get-go, high level as possible. So as you're going through and working, you're not having to go back and reformat things. Think about having how you can assign default colors to certain values in your measures and dimensions. That might be something you want to start doing at the very beginning when you're building out a new workbook, so you don't have to go through and change colors. Also, think about how you can start scaling colors. So in Tableau, you have the ability to use custom color palettes. So there's a preferences.tps file that sits inside my Tableau repository. You can actually go in there, and I'll send the resources after the TUG meeting. So y'all definitely have this link. But there's a preferences.tps file that you can actually go in, and it's some simple XML, and you can create your own color palettes just using hex code. So you can make diverging, sequential, categorical color palettes. So I use a few different customized color palettes in my workbook. So just a quick screenshot of one. This is a custom color palette that I made for my movies visualization, right? So I chose pink and blue, and Tableau did the rest. And I just coded this inside my preferences.tps file. And when I publish this to Tableau Server, Tableau Online, Tableau Public, all of that information about the colors is in the metadata of the workbook. So the end user doesn't have to go in and download a new color palette, right? And if you want to start scaling out that preferences file, you can just send that to your colleagues, and folks will have the same color palettes that you will. You can even upload that to Tableau Server, so folks all are using the same color palettes when they're web editing. Containers. Now, containers is something we're also going to spend more time on when we're in the product. You all have probably seen in the dashboard screen, the object containers, the horizontal and vertical ones, the image, the web, button, extension, text, floating. These are all things that have a lot of different uses. And these are things that are going to help you scale your work a lot. And I'm going to spend more time on that in the product. Something I want we all to think about as well is bringing PowerPoint into Tableau. Okay, so a lot of times I see people trying to put Tableau visualizations into PowerPoint. I want you all to think about doing the opposite. Putting images using one of the image object containers, right? Using one of these, you can start putting in your PowerPoint slides within your dashboards and then building visualizations to put on top of your PowerPoint slides, almost like a template of sorts. And scale your changes. So all the things that I've talked about can be scalable. Those custom color palettes, like I said, you can share the preferences file. You can publish those to Tableau server. Custom shapes, you can put that in a repository so everyone uses the same shapes. You can start creating templates with PowerPoint or any other software to use images, or even create templates of workbooks. So if you're using data like Salesforce data, those objects pretty much all have the same headers. So you can have a workbook that's really well formatted that you can then distribute out to different areas of the business or customers of yours, that basically it's point at that template workbook. It's going to connect to the data source. All the column headers are the same in something like Salesforce, for example, and it just feeds the data, populating it into that templatized workbook. Copying, pasting, something so simple, but something that folks forget is that you can copy and pasting formatting at the sheet level. And I'll show you how. And of course, designing for mobile. So Tableau automatically is going to create a mobile-friendly dashboard alongside of your dashboards. And I like to call this out because a lot of times folks have been interacting with visualizations outside of their laptops, more on their mobile devices, even in the work from home era. So it's important to keep that in mind and to make sure that you have those mobile friendly dashboards available for folks who are going to be using the app. And remember, that's something that's automatic, but I'm going to show you how you can go in and further customize and format that. And of course, know your audience, know your goals, but let's see this in action. So before we start, I want to know, are there any questions, comments? Anything come up, Jeff?
No, nothing in the chat yet.
Perfect.
I'm interested, once we get to it, to talk about the copying formatting between sheet to sheet. Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble with that one sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to start by sharing this in a part of, I just tried refreshing this and opening it in another browser. I might actually have to do that. It looks like my computer is running into some weird issues here where it's like pixelating a lot of things, but apologies there. Let me see if I can put this in full screen. This is the Viz cookbook. It's a Tableau public link. So you're going to see a lot of visualizations that I've created today. They might be not the typical show me visualizations, but I'm going to share this link. And if y'all want to see this, just Google Viz cookbook, Tableau public. But if you're curious about how I built some of those visualizations that you're going to see, go to the Viz cookbook. All of these visualizations are things that are not out of the box. So the Lollipop chart using custom shapes, for example. If I click on the Lollipop chart, I now go to the specific visualization about the Lollipop chart and instructions that I can click on. Oh, here's one of those useless tooltips. This tooltip is something that I would not include. And you can actually click on the link and it will take you on how to build a Lollipop chart. And again, I apologize here for this weird issue that Chrome is giving me. I'm going to switch browsers here. Apologies. So while I switch this, and let's see if anyone had any questions or comments.
Just so folks know, we will actually be providing the recording of this to participants. So it'll be available on our LinkedIn page, and then we typically email it to everybody as well. So if you're not getting all the links that we're providing or that Rich is going through, you'll be able to get to it later as well.
I appreciate that. So thanks for bearing with me all. I'm going to be copy and pasting links over to Safari because Safari is working. So I wanted to kick it off with talking about using images within Tableau, because this is something that a lot of folks have been utilizing that I see as a solution engineer when I'm interacting with customers. So this is a typical investment portfolio presentation, and it's been customized for each customer. So you can see that this is just an image. This is basically a screenshot that somebody has put into Tableau. I can show y'all how to achieve this. So if I go to Tableau Desktop and create a new dashboard, you can see my dashboard. I can size it. I'm going to put it on automatic just to make it full screen. And then a quick trick, if I just wanted to be full screen on the size of my screen, I go to automatic, then back to fixed. And now it's going to be fixed on this size. I'm going to grab just my image and just drag it in. And sometimes I do entire PowerPoint presentations like this. And I think, yeah, this is my cover slide for our tug. So I can go into my options, edit the image. I want to fit and center it. Okay. And there you go. This could be my title slide for my PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to do in Tableau. And then if I wanted to bring in one of those visualizations, I'm holding down Shift to make this floating. I can bring this in. And you can see that it is transparent. I can remove the title or change if I want the title to be there. I actually want to remove it, so I'm just going to uncheck that. And if I click on layout, you'll see that I can also make some changes here. So I can add a border to it by clicking on border, make it orange. So you can see I have now added a visualization into my title slide. And this, I obviously made this in PowerPoint because this is the first slide of my presentation today. So I basically took a screenshot, popped it in here, brought my visualization, made it floating. The floating is going to default with that transparent background. If I actually want to add a background, I just click. Remember, I'm on my layout tab. Click on background, and let's say maybe I want to make it gray or black or white. If I go to none, right, that's how I get that transparency to kind of now make it look like outer space. And I can move it anywhere I want. It's important, though. You notice that I made sure my dashboard is a fixed size, because if I have a floating object, and let's say that I have an automatic sizing, and I change the sizing, you can see how that throws it off. So if I'm using any sort of floating object within my dashboard, I want to fix the size. So again, I'm going to fix it. And now when I shrink it, right, it's still going to stay in the same location, and it's not going to try to resize itself. This is important when people are using different size screens, right, when engaging with your different visualizations. But back to this example, right, imagine my template. My next visualization, I'm going to have, or my next slide, I'm going to have actual portfolio information for Rachel Adams within my dashboard. And you can see I've got interactive KPIs. I can add interactivity by clicking, right? I've got my table down here, no tooltip, which I love. So if you click, it gives you the tooltip, but no, oh, there's some over there. But you can see that the template is just from PowerPoint, or it's from Photoshop, and it's just screenshotting, dragging, and dropping in Tableau. Here's the content template. And again, this is the template up top, showing the key trends, and I can just use that image in Tableau, the image object container, and then populate my vises here. And here I can already have some visualizations and tooltips showing me more information about healthcare. This is just a screenshot with, that overview, a quote from Robert Frost from The Road Not Taken. I've done things like this a lot for different companies, where I'm just putting one of those informational slides directly into the PowerPoint presentation, or excuse me, my Tableau visits. And here you can see all the different sheets that I had. But this is just a Tableau workbook that has been, that has images embedded in it. Now, another example that I wanted to talk about is story points. How many folks have used story points? It's not something that I've used, that I had used very frequently, but it's when you're using PowerPoint a lot, you may want to consider story points. So in Tableau Desktop, right, you know, I could open up a new dashboard, but I could open up a story. With the story, that gives me the ability to basically have slides and give me a title, and give me the ability to click through and start seeing different information. This is the history of the Dow Jones. And again, these colors, they make more sense, even though there's a lot of them. We have basically a sequential palette, and this is just to start differentiating different companies. And it's more of like a highlight feature rather than knowing exactly which company is which. So this is more of an aesthetic choice rather than an informational choice. But something to consider is using story points too, rather than PowerPoint. And again, you can also put in images within the visualizations. Formatting doesn't always have to be, you know, something super fun either. It can just be for things as boring as, you know, a banking investment portfolio dashboard. So this is campaigns by different credit cards. And again, this is demo data. I'm on a publicly facing demo server here. So none of this information is actually real. But you can see that I'm using some custom shapes here within Tableau to show the different credit cards offered by my company, and using the interactivity of the different actions and formatting my dashboard from top to bottom, where I'm going ahead and clicking on my different campaigns and seeing the different information about each one of my cards. Another example that I like to show too is something that's very useful. And again, like, it's not always designing for, you know, something super fun, but you might want to design to get people to use the product more. So here we have, again, a lot of formatting. We have an image of the person. We have a button showing ask data that appears within a transparent frame. We've got our map that has been formatted differently. We have the animations turned on, different backgrounds set for different scorecards, using Lollipop charts here as well. But this, you know, is a credit risk dashboard. This is something that could very easily, you know, be a dashboard like this one over here that you're going to see is not going to be something as engaging. Air miles, cashback, points cards, number of customers. This is much easier to read, much easier to see the information. And honestly, it's a lot easier on the eyes. And you can see that we're adding different buttons and images. There's a clear button here to clear filters. And these are all object containers. So let's go ahead and just hop into the product. As I do this, I'm just going to go ahead and pause again and see if there's any questions that came up. And we'll use the last 30 minutes here or so just playing around Tableau.
Yes, there was one, and I tried to answer, but we'll let the expert take it. So any recommendations for image format, PNG, JPEG, etc.?
That's a great question. I'm just going to go ahead and skip to this part because it's one of my favorite parts of my presentation. And it's this dashboard here. I'm going to talk about the different aspects, but my recommendation is PNG. And this is why. PNGs have transparent backgrounds. They're also really easy to make in a tool like Photoshop or the free one, GIMP, that you can download online, right? But I'm using a PNG in this dashboard. This is a dashboard showing me, you know, different movies. I can actually click on the different movies. I've got a KPI in my tooltip here that shows me good movies versus rotten movies. So this is adding that interactivity here. But you can see at the bottom that, you know, if I click on a movie of 6.8 hearts, you know, a rating of 6.8 on IMDb, I have 6.8 hearts. Same thing here, 5.5. Because I'm using a PNG. So we talked a little bit about putting PowerPoint into Tableau, but this is just, you know, I got somebody who was a designer at Tableau to make this for me. And the file here, I'll unfit it so y'all can see it. I didn't even know what size my dashboard was going to be. So I asked, could you make me a high resolution image of 10 hearts? Because I want to make a bar graph, but I want to make that bar graph a little bit more interactive and a little bit more fun. So they did, and I used Tableau just to fit the image, and it's high res. I can use my layout tab here to actually pixel perfect change the size if I need to. And I simply just drag it on top and just adjust, further adjust as needed. So that's not quite 7.7. I can just slide it over a little bit, right? This is basically a bar chart with a PNG on top of it. And that's why I always recommend PNGs. That transparent background comes in very, very handy. So imagine all the different things that you can do just with a bar chart and a PNG, right? Any questions about that? Anyone surprised? I usually get at least some folks surprised.
Yeah, I think I saw something like this, like my first Tableau conference in 2017.
That could have been my class. Honestly.
As soon as you lifted up the floating hearts and it was just a bar chart underneath, it was just kind of like a jaw drop moment.
Yeah, just think about just the different uses for images and dashboards. But like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect because you can always fit it in Tableau. You can center it. Just make sure it's high res, and I always recommend PNGs. All right, so let's look at this information here. This is a dashboard. It's only one sheet with all my filters here. And I have my countries, states, cities, a lot of information about my different products. I also have a lot of different filters here. Now, this obviously gives me a lot of information. It gives me interactivity, but it's not going to be something as useful as a dashboard. Real quick, some changes I could make to make this a little bit more useful right off the bat. And again, I'm not saying that tables are bad. Tables can be very useful. And you'll see how I can actually use a table in a visualization as well. But if I just want to show a table and I want to add some sort of visual value to this dashboard, which is only one sheet in filters, what I can do is grab measure values, put this in color, change my marks card to square, make sure the labels are on, and then right click on my legend, or excuse me, my measure values on color, and then select use separate legends. I'm now going to get 3 different color legends. And each one of these I can modify separately. So my profit, orange to blue, is great. Shipping cost, I might want to have red. That's a cost. And then sales, I might want to have green. But you can see here that I am adding some visual context just by adding colors to my different columns within my visualization here. The other thing I would do to this dashboard, if I was just presenting a sheet, I'm going to turn off my camera now because it is slowing down for me on my end, so apologies. There it goes. The other thing I would do to this dashboard to make it easier for the end user is these filters. So you can see that all of these filters are inside an object container. I'm in my layout tab already. And if you see, it's called really bad design. You can see that I have object containers. Inside this object container, I have other object containers. I can see which object container that I'm utilizing just by clicking on it. This one's really messy. You can see they did a really bad job of their containers. But you can see at the end that I have a container here with all of my filters inside of it. If I make this whole object floating just by clicking Shift and dragging it, and change these filters up to make them like drop-down filters instead. All right, I'll just make one of them just for this example. So a single valley drop-down, for example. What I can do is I can tell Tableau that for this whole object container, so if I double click on the tab, it'll select the whole object container, that I actually want to add a show and hide button. So now I have an X or a hamburger where I can collapse and expand my filters. So I can actually design this in a way where even a crosstab like this can be more organized, and I can make my filters easier to utilize for my end users. What I can even do, if I don't want to have drop-downs and I want to have all those selections, I can make this larger. Again, with the layouts, I can change the borders and add one. And I'll also add a background. I'll make this, let's do black, so it really stands out there. And then here you go, right? Let me unselect this, deselect. So now when I press the X, I don't have my filter. When I press it, I have a filter. So some quick changes on a table, but let's say I decided to make a dashboard. So all this data that you're seeing here, it's the same that was on the table, absolutely the same. But is this dashboard easy to use? If I want to look at copiers, I click on copiers. I mean, that's what I'm thinking I should do. But then, you know, I've got the scatter plot, 2 scatter plots, but profit and shipping cost. This is not something, even though it's visual, this is not something that is going to be easy for the end user to understand or to utilize. Neither is that table really. First of all, this query, this initial query that's happening to generate this table or that dashboard, it's gonna be massive. It has to pull all of that data. You saw that my computer was thinking a little bit when I was interacting with it. Also, it doesn't answer any question. What's the point of this? Again, there's no 5 seconds. I need to kind of figure out, why should I be engaging with this? It's slow, not interactive, not too pleasing to look at. But let's look at this same dashboard, same data, I should say, but using formatting, using object containers, using visual best practices with my KPIs up top, most important information on the left. Click through each visualization. Okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm finding information and insights about regions. So obviously, when I start my regions, US and Canada, APAC, Europe. Okay, I can see some outliers. Looks like France has a lot of business happening. I can click on France. Wow, there's a problem on my tables. Click on tables. Oh, now I can see all the different products that I sell within tables. I want to know more about my Han round table. It has the worst profits out of my tables in France. And there's the table. Well, I didn't mean that. I mean, it is the table that has the worst profits, but I mean, there's the crosstab. So the crosstab is still being utilized, but now it's being utilized at the most granular level. Only when I select a group of data points that I want to look at and understand better, or a specific outlier. And this guided analysis, first of all, that initial query is only going to be for this bar chart. So this is going to be much more performing. Also, it's guided. I know I need to start looking at my different regions. There's no reason why I need to load every single country, every single product at the same time, when all I need to know are the differences, the outliers. This becomes a much more intuitive and navigable experience. I'm going to skip here to titles and tooltips, some things I wanted to talk about. So titles and tooltips, you can see that I have a title that's informative. It's showing me my top grossing movies from 1992 to 2016. My tooltips are actually visualizations within my tooltip. Visualizations within tooltips are something, it's one of my favorite features, honestly. I use them all the time. So to build something like this, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate it, right? To build something like this, what I would do is select where I want my tooltip, first of all. So my tooltip does not need to be on the bar. It should be when I hover over the line key. So that should be the circle. So I can go in, double click on my tooltip. And you can see I can put my movie title here. And all of this is dynamic, right? So I have my released year, an attribute for the director name, but right here, this is where I can insert an actual sheet. So the sheet that I want to insert, could be my IMDb score, but this is my film budget versus gross. So I can just find that visualization in here, select it, and then I should be able to have it within my visualization. So I'm going to use this budget one just to change it. I can always Control Z. So this, might not be the best format. So what I need to do, if I want the budget to appear there in really large numbers, it seems like I need to make this wider. So I can actually come in and adjust this, make it 600 width, put my mouse over it, and there you go. An extremely high budget in the trillions for Finding Nemo. This is fictitious data, remember that. Another thing about tooltips that you can do is you can start leveraging different pieces of information in your tooltip. So here, directed by James Cameron, for example. If I go into my tooltips again, I can say that I want to allow selections by category. If I allow selection by category, if I now select, let's find James Cameron. If I select James Cameron, it's going to highlight the other James Cameron movies in this data set, which should be Avatar. And that's an option that I can select, within my tooltip options. So I can find all the Michael Bay movies if I need to. Another way to use titles and tooltips and more dynamic actions would be in this dashboard over here that is more, trying to make it more of a corporate aesthetic here. So I have my budget, revenue, profitability. And what I'm doing is I have the ability to click again on Avatar. I can see the year, my label appears dynamically, and I see financial information for Avatar, my budget, my revenue, the profitability. And this is going to be dynamic as I go and change the different the movies that I want to understand. So I'm using this is a title. Oh, this is actually a one sheet without a title, pardon me. And this sheet just has a text box. And what I did is I set up my different actions in order for it to happen in a way that's cascading. So when I click on Titanic, my actions are set up to show data for Titanic. When I deselect, my action tells it to show absolutely nothing. So if I go to my dashboard and my actions, you'll be able to see that is just a select action, and I'm excluding all values when I deselect. Now on the copy to paste formatting and workbook formatting and dashboard formatting, I want to talk about that a little bit. So if I go to format and I go to workbook, this is where I can make those high level changes. So grid lines. Question that comes up a lot is, how do I turn off lines on everything? So if I turn on grid lines, it's going to turn on my grid lines for the entire workbook. If I make them black, it's going to make it black for the entire workbook. So any other sheet I go to now is going to have black crossed grid lines, which might not be the best for this visualization. And I can do the same thing to zero lines. I can add or remove them across the entire workbook. This comes in very handy for doing things like donut charts. I want to remove zero lines from my donut charts. can also, and those are just the lines. So you can see I have control of turning all the lines on or off, or even resetting things to default across the entire workbook. But fonts are the other thing that you can format across the entire workbook. So at the highest level, I can format every single font in this workbook to be orange. Everything. I can then format maybe just the worksheet titles to be in black. So you can see, again, if I have the idea of what I want, I know that everything is basically going to be orange. I can then make all my fonts orange, remove all the lines if I want to, and then go through and change just what I need to change. Dashboard formatting is going to be very similar. So the dashboard formatting is going to give me even more ability to format across my dashboard. So I can change my shading, and the shading is everything in behind the visualizations, right? So this is changing the background for absolutely everything that is behind the visualizations. So if I have, for example, a transparent background on this, right, it's going to be white or black or whatever color the dashboard shading is. This does not have a transparent background, so that's why it retains its color as I switch the background of the entire dashboard. I can change my titles. So if I want my font to be bold and orange, and I want that to have a black background, you can see I changed that on my dashboard. I can do the titles of my worksheets the same way. So just to match that aesthetic, you can see I just went through and said for my font, orange, shading, black. So if I had multiple sheets here, let's add another one. You'll see by default, oh, drag that to the wrong spot. It's going to have that black and orange font. So again, that high level. Now let's talk about the copy and pasting formatting. So if we go to the sheet in the dashboard, right, I can go to format, shading, worksheet, make this orange. I want to add red fonts on the title. There. So I'm going to right click, copy formatting. I'm going to go to my profitability sheet, or excuse me, my sheet that just has that text box. Right click, paste formatting. You can see the background changed, but let's go ahead and click on a data point to see what happened. What changed? The alignment. This was aligned in the center where I wanted it to be originally. But when I went through and copy and pasted the formatting, since alignment is one of the options for formatting, see it, alignment, it's actually to copy that alignment too. So that's why I say it's cascading. That's why I say be very careful when you're copying and pasting things, because you can see the changes that I started making. If I go back and try to overwrite some of these, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to achieve. Now, this visualization is something I went through and went and formatted, highly formatted it. So I just want to turn off these grid lines because I set it to default. All right, these grid lines should be gone. So this one I formatted a lot. I put in instructions. I put in titles for my different filters. So how long instead of just minutes. Search for the film you want instead of just movie title. I made myself a filter that is actually a word cloud. Like I said, I made the KPI within my tooltip. I added an action here where I like to consider this formatting. The action where whatever film I choose, so the boiler room, if I click on the URL, it's going to take me to imdb.com and show me, the preview. So I can watch a trailer for this movie, right? And this is something that I did in my actions. So within my dashboard, within my data set, I should say, I have something called URL. If I turn on my tooltips, I'll just reset my tooltips to default. You can see the URL is the IMDb link. So I can do this on my dashboard or my worksheet, but I'll do it on the worksheet here. If I go to actions, add an action, a go to URL action on my word cloud. I want a menu. So the menu means when I select it, I get the little drop down. And here, I'm just going to put in my URL. Let me make sure I'm on the right one. Oh, this one's movie score, not word cloud. And then okay. Oh, and then the title. So you can say, click here for trailer. Okay. Okay. And now when I click here for trailer, I don't know which one this was, but it's going to appear in my browser. So I'm doing that just by formatting and, putting my, formatting the actual action within my worksheet to have a URL value and to also have an interactive title that lets that end user know to click here for the trailer. I'm going to go back a couple of steps here so we can take a look at that tooltip. And you saw I just pressed Control V like 10 times and Tableau just went back. It's one of the things I love the most about this. So you can see here, I've got good movie and rotten movie. And just to make this better, let's make good movie green again and rotten red again. So it kind of took the magic away here, but you can see that I have two different calculations. And what I did is I just put the calculations right next to each other. Good movie and rotten movie. Except this calculation is going to return null values when it's rotten. So it's only going to show me goods. And rotten is going to return null values when I hover over a good. So null values is going to be nothing. It's just going to be space. So that's how I can have a good movie and a rotten movie appear in my KPI within my tooltip. And the way I wrote this is a KPI simply defining if the score is above or below the average per year. So the line here is the average per year. And if the dots are above or the squares are above, then it's good. Or if it's below, then it's bad. And then I just wrote two other calculations, one called good movie and one called bad movie. And it's just if KPI is good, then it's good. And I just split off because I couldn't have a Boolean result of true or false. I just needed that singular result, or else it would show all when I hover over it. So it's just a good or null, basically. And that's how I build that KPI within my tooltip. The customized colors too. Make sure I have my palette here. I switched computers recently, so I may not. So you can see there's room here for my custom sequential and custom diverging. So if I go into my Tableau repository, I'm gonna put it up here. One moment. All right. So if I go to my Tableau repository, this is where you're going to see that preferences TPS file. So I can open this with basically any text editor. I accidentally double clicked on it, so Tableau is trying to open it, and it actually will not open it because it's not a file that you can open with Tableau. I'm just trying to open this up with a text editor, and again, new computer. While y'all are witnessing me struggling a little bit here finding a good text editor, but that preferences TPS file is just going to basically have some XML. Let's see if I can just find an example here on Safari. It'll probably be easier.
If anyone was ever big into MySpace back in the day, same concept.
Oh, I love that reference. I'm going to steal that one. But yeah, here's some images. So it's going to have, you have to wrap things around the workbook tag, preferences, and then categorical, like I was mentioning. And, it's just this. You can copy and paste this into your preferences file, save it, restart Tableau, and you have your custom color palettes. And again, it's categorical, sequential, diverging, and the instructions are super easy to find. Again, it's as easy as MySpace. I love that. In that preference or in that My Tableau repository, though, as well. Oh, this is where you're going to have your shapes, and this is where you can put in custom shapes. So I can actually create a new folder here, and I'll call this Nova. And I can actually put images in there. So see if I can get an image. I think I got a PNG, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to save my image, and this is on my other screen. I'm going to make this a surprise image. And I'm just going to save it here. I'll show you all my workflow. If I could drag this, oh, you're going to see the image. I'm using a tugboat, but I can just go to my Tableau repository, my shapes, Nova, save. The image is there. I go back into Tableau. So I'm going to go from my square to my shape. Edit my shapes. So here, you're not going to see Nova yet. So what I'm going to do is reload shapes. What this does, it pings my Tableau repository, the shapes folder, and now you got Nova. Now we're going to have tugboats. Oh. Should have tugboats. Not sure why it didn't render my tugboats. But, oh, it might be too large of an image. There are some image requirements, and this one is massive. So apologies there. But that would be these steps. You can at the very least see it rendering. Let me see if I can actually just assign this on a new sheet, because I really want this tugboat to work. It's going to kind of be the ending here of my presentation. Color. You can use color. So I'm just going to change this to shapes. Double click, make this entire view. More. Should have my Nova here. Apply. And there you go. Now I got tugboats. And you can change the size here too. So if you use a high enough resolution image, you should actually be able to get these pretty large if you want to. And then from here, I do whatever I want. So I can maybe get the average per year for color. And I'll dual axis these. Oh, I forgot that I also switched to a Mac recently, so I keep pressing Control and then I press Alt. And it's been a learning experience for me. So I'll go to bars. I'll make one bar thick, or excuse me, thinner. What I'm doing now is making that lollipop chart. And then just bring these two together by dual accessing them. Make sure my tugboats are on top of my lollipops, and then just make my shapes there a little bit larger. And now we have the tugboat, you know, on an ocean. It's the way I'm going to imagine that. It's like being Bob Ross, just painting a little bit, but with Tableau. But I just wanted to give you all that, you know, overview of a lot of different formatting. I know I threw a lot at you. I'm going to create a massive extract of this workbook and send it to y'all, as well as a list of links in my PowerPoint presentation. Again, none of this data is real. It's all fictitious. So it was a pleasure being here today. And I know we've got a few minutes left. I've got some extra time. So I just wanted to open it up for any questions that folks might have.
So I know there was a question a little while ago from Jay about just seeing the PowerPoint going into the dashboard. Again, using a PowerPoint as a backdrop. So I don't know if you can kind of go back to that really quickly.
Yeah, so let's use this slide. So I'm just going to Command Shift 4, taking a screenshot here. And then I'm going to go back to Tableau and I'm opening a dashboard. I'm just going to leave this a desktop size as is. Grab that image. Let's drop it in here. Choose my image. Containers. I want to fit this. I can center it too. And then I can bring in a floating sheet here to have that also be as part of my slide. And now watch this, layout, background, more colors. I'm going to pick the little pin, the color selector. Okay. And now I have a slide with a visualization in it. Does that make sense? I can even put it inside the container. So that's how I've been using PowerPoint inside of Tableau. And then the next thing, you just open up a new sheet and you repeat the process, right? I can grab that same image. So that's how I can have a templated slide. Just drag it in there. I can use my Nova slide this time, right? Fit the image. I can make the black, I can make my background black to match, right? Or this time I can just make this automatic and I'll make this fit as well and center, right? And then again, I can just drag in the visualizations that I need. And if I want to start putting this together, I have the option again of just having my sheets and publishing this up as different sheets or in a dashboard together, or again, use that story points. So here I can use my whole dashboard, open a new blank story point. So here I can say containers. And then my next one could be Novas. And then just drag that in here. And now I have a very PowerPoint-ish presentation where I can click through and talk about that, the different subjects. And all of this, again, I can format all of it. So now I have a format story option. So I can make the background black. I can shade the title differently, right? The navigator can also be better looking, right? So it's a couple of different ways that you can use PowerPoint and Tableau, and you can see it's just screenshotting, copy and pasting, moving things into Tableau, formatting things to make them look right, and you should be good to go. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, mobile. So again, if I go to my dashboard, device preview, right now I'm a generic iPad, but let's say I want to look at this in an iPhone, right? Add an iPhone layout. So now Tableau has created for me a layout specifically for my phone. If I unlock this, I can now make changes. This bar graph of the PNG, not going to work for me on the iPhone. This title, I might want to make this a different font color. I think this filter, I can move it and put it up here. And what I'll do is have people click on the different word clouds and they can just see the overall trends, right? So now I have made myself a customized dashboard for the phone. And then the default is the full dashboard. So that's what I mean about formatting and kind of thinking about things in the phone. Because even though it's automatic and populating it for you, should you include everything? Do you need to include everything? Right? You might want to customize it specifically for the phone. And again, it's just clicking this lock and unlock button. If you unlock it, that's what can give you the ability to customize it. If it's locked, it's going to be locked to everything that's on the default. I know I went a little bit beyond there, but I hope that was able to answer the question.
Yeah, so one other thing, do you have a title here where you can just kind of click on and show? We have a question on just creating a dynamic title.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. So I double clicked on the title here. What film should we watch tonight? What I'll do is insert, and you can see that I have parameters that I can insert on the dashboard title itself. But on a worksheet title, I can actually insert everything that's on detail. So if I want to say the movie title, films by movie score and year, I'm going to say, let me make this more viewable first of all. Now viewing, and then I'll insert my movie title. And I'll make this red and underline, bold, and italicize. I really wanted to stand out. Apply. Now viewing all. Again, this is why I don't do Boolean for that tooltip, because if you have both selected, it would show all, right? But now when I select a movie, it didn't work. I'm embarrassed. Oh, it might be because of the dual axes. Let me just get rid of one of these axes just to make this example as quick as possible. So I'm just going to remove this other one. Let me just make this let me adjust this to make it just a filter, because the dynamic title is going to work along with a filter. And when I click this, it's not affecting anything other than the hearts. So this is where I'm going to go to my actions and movie score. I'm just going to make this affect everything. Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I'm not sure why this dynamic title is not cooperating. Let me perhaps change it to IMDb score. It's showing me the full range there. Yeah, I apologize for that, but that's how you would add a dynamic title. You add it here and it interacts with your visualization. I have been running into some issues here, some slowdowns. I don't want to blame it on that, but that does seem to be what's going on here because it's not updating. This one is updating. See, it says anywhere and the average IMDb score, and it's literally the same logic. It's just inserting the different attributes that I have in there in detail, everything that's in this viz. So this one, for some reason, is working, but you can see I just changed the colors there, but it's the same logic. You just insert the data points in the title. So double click, insert parameters. You have all of them or everything that's on the viz itself. Okay. And then you have the dynamic titles. And again, this is working because of that interactivity between the action filters. Sorry about that. Do not know why I messed up on me, but this is live.
Live demos are fun.
You're giving us hope that way.
Anything else? I think we got the hamburger button covered.
I've never heard it referred to as the hamburger button, but I like that.
Because it looks like a hamburger.
It's a Big Mac,
Buns
I
in the
guess.
patty.
Yeah, I've always called it the hamburger. Maybe that's a Texas thing. Well, perfect. I'm good to go on content here. But again, if we have any other questions or anything at all that y'all wanted to see, I'm completely open to build anything y'all want. Maybe not a Sankey chart, but I can try.
Yes, I'm just going to answer this question from Casey. Yes, you can add an image to the hamburger button. If you just click the down arrow there, and you can just add any image you need to.
Yeah. Image button. So here, choose an
Even a
image.
hamburger.
Yeah, I'll just use the picture of me that I was thinking about using for this PowerPoint slide. There you go. You can change the other button too. The buttons too, what I like doing a lot is adding navigation buttons, right? So I can make this go to another sheet. So this can navigate to a bad design. And I'll just make it say navigate. And now when I click on it, it will take me to bad design. And I make another button here to take me back to my original sheet. So again, I'm just grabbing the navigation object, down, edit, navigate to whichever one. Thank you. Thank you, slide. Okay, and then boom, optimizing workbooks. So it's different ways you can use those buttons. Those buttons, though, only on dashboards. You cannot add those object containers or buttons to sheets. So that PowerPoint trick about putting the image in there, that has to be on a dashboard. And then I can put the dashboard into the story. But to get that image in these object containers, I need to use it, the image. The object containers too, another great use. I'm going to bring in a vertical one here and a horizontal one. So vertical, you'll see that it is going to put things stacked one on top of each other. The horizontal, it's going to give me, as you saw the filters populate here, areas to put them next to each other horizontally. Now, if I can click this whole container, you can see the sizes pretty off. All right, I made them even more off. If I click, so double click on this gray tab will give me the whole container. And what I can say is distribute evenly. So now, no matter what size I put this, it's going to distribute everything evenly for me. So even if I make a really tall dashboard, right, it's still distributing the contents evenly. So that's one of the favorite things about horizontal and vertical containers is that feature. We saw the navigation, the text one, literally, it's text. You can insert things here too, like parameters or full name. So it's going to be the user that's logged in, which is me. I can put the last time, the workbook name. On the dashboard title, I'd be able to put like the last time this was extracted. So you can see Richard Durval and text. Web page. So the web page, I'm actually going to use that IMDb. I'm going to mess this visualization up. And let's go ahead and put a web page in here. Let's go press OK. I can actually put in hard code a web page, but since I have click here to find out more, it's actually going to render it inside of the visualization now. And all I did was just drag that web page object container in. OK, click. Brooklyn rules, right? So that was with the web page. Image we saw already. Download. It's to download a PDF or to download the workbook, right? So this you can assign the image, the crosstab, the PowerPoint. So this is basically adding just like a download button, which is something that already comes with Tableau Server in the toolbar, but this is adding it to the actual dashboard itself. And of course, the extensions. Extensions, you'll see there's a gallery. These are third-party applications that people have created. So these are different ways that you can build visualizations or add additional insight from an API connection to additional like pixel perfect reporting capabilities, additional animations. These aren't free. Some of them are, but also some of them are not. So just be aware that some of these have a price to them. And again, these are vetted by Tableau. They are on our gallery, but they are made by third parties. You can make your own by utilizing the software developer kit and the extension API. I am not a coder, but if you are, you can create your own. So you can see a lot of these are right back. And one of our newest ones is adding that insight for Einstein discovery directly into your dashboards if you are a CRM customer as well. So I just also gave like a quick overview there of all the other object containers while answering that question.
Hey, Richard, you might know the answer to this before I look. The download object, was that 2020.1 that was released?
Oh, you got me.
Yeah, I'll look. I
can do that live too. So what I like to do is Tableau release notes. And this page is something I actually use a lot as a Tableau employee. The new features and the release notes, because here I can actually filter and see all the different releases. So 2020.1, play in the browser button, mapping, dynamic parameters, buffer calculations, export dashboard buttons. Yep, you're right. 2020.1. Thank you. Good questions. Any other ones?
I don't see anything on the chat. I have probably the ultimate question for you though. Based on your dashboards, I think I know the answer, but are you a floating or a tiled guy?
It depends. So floating, when I have a fixed dashboard like this, I will 100% use a floating object like my menu button. This is 100% floating, right? But this is responsible usage of floating because I have a fixed size dashboard. So I know that wherever I put this, it's going to stay there no matter the size of the screen. Now, if I have to build something that is automatic range, and if I'm using my 38-inch monitor or my laptop monitor, depending on which monitor, this floating object could be here or it could be here. So floating only on fixed for me, and then automatic, never floating, only tiled. So that's why I say it depends, because for me, right, as a solution engineer, I'm knee deep in other people's data and dashboards half the time. So it's going to be their requirements, right? So I have to rise up to the challenges that they're facing, essentially. I know saying sometimes either one's a cop-out, but for me, it is absolutely sometimes, it's a sometimes situation. But the rule there, automatic, don't have floating. Fixed size, feel free to use all the floatings you want.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. And does anyone else have any questions out there?
I know we kind of talked about maps a little bit, and since we do have a little bit of time here, do want to talk about some of the background maps that we have. So with Tableau, you always have the ability to connect to a WMS server. So I've leveraged NASA before and used satellite imagery from NASA on my visualizations. And that's just by entering the URL or server name to connect to that WMS server. You also can add actual images. So maps don't always have to be a map, right? You can map out a store, map out a house. And if I were going to do that, I would want to use a background image to then draw XY coordinates on that image to represent what I want, that polygon to be. But I also have the option of adding map layers, and I've got some options too. So with the map layers, this is where I can start changing the style. So if I want to use a satellite map, so recently I was working with an agricultural company, and they loved this because they could actually go in and zoom in and see, are my salespeople, are they around a lot of farms? So you can see just by zooming in, I can leverage different map layers automatically. And this is coming from Mapbox, and I have that satellite imagery. I can also add, streets, borders for counties, water labels, cities, points of interest. I'm kind of curious to see if middle of nowhere, Texas has any points of interest. Not many, but wow, San Angelo, there's Goodfellow Air Force Base there. I know I used to be stationed there when I was in the Army, and it's kind of funny to be stationed on an Army base, but funny thing to see this again. It's an Air Force base that literally has only one flight line. Imagine that it's not really used as an Air Force base. But with these map layers, you can also do, just an outdoor, kind of like Google, or like just a street view if the streets are the things that you care about. But what I like leveraging a lot is this data layer. The data layer is coming directly from the US Census. So if I want to look at like the male to female ratio, for example, at the zip code level or census tract level, right? And you can see that there's a larger male ratio around the Air Force Base in San Angelo. But you can start leveraging these different data layers to add that additional context to your add some postal code information here to your visualizations. Right. So if I start zooming out a little bit, I'll now have, census information alongside information about my different store locations, for example, or whatever information I want to start looking at. Another thing that I like doing with maps sometimes when it makes sense is creating what I like to call pie maps. So for example, if I want to do a pie chart and I have something, that's pretty categorical, what I could do is, I'll actually put back my postal code. Here, I'm going to change this to a pie. There it goes. And I know with category, I've got just 3 categories. So I can put that on color, and then I can put maybe my sales on my angle. And what I can now do, and let's actually just change this to the state level. I'll drill down here in a bit, but if I dual axis this, I now have information about my states and my categorical sales per state. Here, I need to actually increase the size of all of these at once. And this is where, something like that map where you just see, the different states might come in handy. And a really easy, like the hex bins. And a really easy way to do that in Tableau would just be to build your map, make it a dual axis, and you can go to map and map layers and just turn the washout all the way up. So you can see I washed it all the way up. And now I have a map of the United States made out of pie charts. And if I were to, this might make more sense if I add something like a regional filter. Oh, I'm using an international data set here. Let's go ahead and not use a regional filter, but we can use a state filter. And maybe just look at one at a time. But let's say we had different regions. We could look at one region and just have that image just of, all the different, region people. I'll use this one. So this will be perfect actually. So this, I will show the filter. Oh, now this, yep. And just central, for example. Or just the East Coast. So it's an easier way, right? I always recommend making hex bins, but if you're caught in a real quick one and you want to make just like a map just with some images, some data points, you can always turn that wash up out or wash out up. Excuse me. So there's some mapping formatting for y'all too.
Richard, are you running 2020.4?
I am running 2020.4.1 right now.
Okay.
I'm a
We
version.
had a question from Paul about the newest version allowing stuff like this without dual axis. And I know there was a multiple marks layer release for 2020.4, but I'm not super familiar with it.
Yep. So the multiple marks layer support. So you can now add unlimited marks layers from a single data source to your map visualizations, bringing multiple spatial layers and context together for better understanding and analysis. It also brings Redshift spatial support. So you can see, let me try to zoom in on my new Mac. There it goes. So you can see that they're adding details, 311 calls, and they're just adding it to the marks layer. So absolutely, you would not have to do that. The dual axis here, you would still have to do to get the pie chart specifically, right? Because you can't change, you can see it's circles. I'm assuming you might run into some issues there by turning it into a pie, but maybe not. I've not played around with this functionality specifically yet. I typically I've been working with a lot of customers who actually stay one version back to complete testing before they do that upgrade. So I'm one version back right now, just due to some of the folks I've been working with. Yeah, the new functionalities, they're always coming. As somebody that's been here for about 6 years now, I've seen this product evolve a lot. Like doing this type of thing, I mean, even with dual access, sometimes it was not possible, but now it's a completely different reality. Excited to see what the future has to bring us.
Well, great. I want to say thank you, Richard. I know we kind of threw you a curveball. Thanks for kind of rolling with the audible and
Oh, no problem.
just presenting for the entire time. I thought it was incredibly informative, and I hope everyone thought the same as well. So again, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. And you know, for the user group, I did get a couple recommendations to do a session on just solely on actions. So be on the lookout for that in a future talk. I can throw something together for that. I think that would be beneficial as well. Another thing that I keep very close to my desk here is storytelling with data. It had a ton of information that Richard covered in the beginning part of his presentation. And I think it's a huge resource to have, especially around formatting and just kind of understanding how your users are viewing the data and the dashboards that you are looking at. So I did not get paid for that advertisement. I just really enjoy the book. So definitely check it out. But I think that concludes tonight. Again, the session is recorded, so feel free to go back and check it out if you missed anything. We will send out any links, dashboards, or workbooks that Richard sends us, and any other relevant information we think, and definitely keep you guys informed. And don't forget that May 26th is our tentative next meeting, so we'll hopefully see you then. I see the question there. The book is Storytelling with Data by Cole Knaflick. Definitely a very good one to check out.
Jeff, thank you so much for emceeing. This is from late night in Germany. I'm almost already reaching the dreamland, but thank you so much for emceeing the session. And Rich, I can only repeat, thank you for so much valuable content and really having the patience and letting out so many tricks out of your magic box. So really appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. And Sebastian, drink a beer and go to sleep.
Well, thanks,
Richard. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
And definitely, you see the comment there, add Richard on LinkedIn. He's also got a Tableau public profile that's pretty cool. So you got to check that out as well. So again, thanks everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye, Jeff. Thanks.